What's up, everybody? It is 7:30 Central PM on this Friday night, and we are live for the hashtag TQIF lineup. The highlight of your week.
Let's not oversell ourselves. Okay?
It's the highlight of mine. I look forward to it.
It's the highlight of mine, too. I love TQIF. I think it's awesome.
No, we're here to talk about
take
some...
or leave it.
Well, then, there's the door.
Somebody is at your door?
No, I said you can find the door and you can get the F out of TQIF.
I thought somebody had like somebody from the Mirror Universe had what do they call it when they like send, I don't know, the ATF to screw around with some other guy on playing a video game?
Oh, swatting.
You know swatting, yeah. I thought somebody from the Mirror Universe was swatting you.
Yeah. If law enforcement agents ever come to my door, I have a plan. I'm going out like a boss.
Wow.
But
took a weird turn.
You have a working phaser. You have a prototype working phaser, a phase pistol.
Well, let's turn it back to Star Trek. We're gonna talk about some Star Trek Discovery, and then after we finish the stream on this channel, we're gonna have some fun on Starfleet Boy for Starfleet Boy After Dark. So we have people watching already. Let's just go ahead and get started with it. I'm Fathery.
This is Dave.
Boy.
Let's try it again. We go clockwise order.
Yep.
Okay.
I'm Fathery.
This is Starfleet Boy.
This is Dave.
And this is Tex-Trek.
Engage.
Welcome back aboard the Starship Texas for the 122nd installment of the Tex-Trek podcast, the home of Star Trek fandom from deep in the heart of Texas, where we talk all about Star Trek all the time. And tonight we are here to talk about Star Trek Discovery Season 3, Episode 4. What was the name of it?
Forget Me Not.
Oh, that's okay. Forget Me Not.
I already knew he was doing it. You're not even a dad, and you tell dad jokes. That's great.
Now he needs to leave.
I don't think I'm a dad. Probably not a dad. It's hard to be certain. But yeah, this is an episode written by Alan McElroy, Chris Silvestri, and Anthony Maranville, and directed by Hanelle M. Culpepper.
For those writers, regular staff writers, I'm afraid I don't have a great sense for all that.
Yeah, they were, I believe, all three on Discovery Season 2 and possibly all three on Season 1. Mm-hmm. Hanelle Culpepper has been around for a while.
Yeah, she directed the premiere of Picard.
Yeah, those first, a third of the season of Picard, basically, those first three episodes.
That's true.
And yeah, they made her an EP because she was so foundational in creating that show. But yeah, so here she is back working on Discovery because, directors got to eat. But yeah, so we're going to talk all about this episode. I'm just going to summarize it very quickly by reading the official synopsis. You can find it all over the place. I pull them off of Memory Alpha, and then I'll just kind of expand on that with some spoilers to recap the episode for everyone. And we also might have our other regular Brian might pop up at some point later in the podcast and show up. He's having some technical difficulties. I think his ship was passing into a nebula or something like that.
They should probably bring in those little repair droids to help him out.
Oh, yeah, those things that I fucking hate.
Yeah, they're all over this episode.
We'll talk about those tonight, too.
Yeah. We actually have to dive deep into the pool and find him and bring him out.
Well, who's going in for him?
I'll do it.
Okay. So
I'll be Burnham.
Starfleet
I'll
Boy
be the
will take the dive.
Starfleet Burnham.
Just to summarize this, the official synopsis reads: Burnham and Adira visit the Trill homeworld, while Saru's efforts on the Discovery to help the crew reconnect yield surprises. There's actually like a pretty good explanation of the episode. I'll just expand on that a little bit. We learned that Adira, we learned about her backstory. The Trill Tall that was mentioned previously was not only a Starfleet Admiral old dude, but then became Gray, Adira's boyfriend, who died and passed the Tal symbiote on to her. Captain Saru tries to increase morale on the ship with basically a Thanksgiving dinner. And when that doesn't work, he listens to the computer, which, by the way, is starting to come to life, like we saw in Calypso. And the computer tells him to show everyone Buster Keaton movies. So that's the episode in a nutshell. And we have a new arrival into the podcast.
What? There's Brian.
Hello. Sorry.
How's it going?
I went through the wrong wormhole.
Okay, wormhole. I knew you'd have some type of explanation.
Yeah. Had to reboot the ODN network. So
Nice. Half
Fair
our
enough,
audience
as long
threatened to leave if you weren't going to come on, so I'm glad you're here.
oh, okay. So that's like how many people was half? Okay.
People in the audience were concerned. Alexandra Sandu is asking where you were.
All right. Well, I was trying to be here. I thought I had it all ready to go, and then the computer is aging, and apparently it decided that you haven't. It sometimes forgets the USB ports exist. And
who doesn't?
Yeah.
Father, you were talking about that being like a Thanksgiving dinner. That seems like a Thanksgiving dinner that went about as well as 2020 Thanksgivings are likely to go.
Well, it is what it is. It was appropriate for November, though. It was. There might be some other.
Oh yeah,
explanations for this episode being kind of timed rather appropriately.
Yeah, if people ever do themed Trek episodes, this one would fit nice in with a Thanksgiving themed night.
I mean, what else do you have? Charlie X? That episode took place over Thanksgiving.
Oh, did it? Jesus. Yeah. I guess I was thinking of ones where the crew kind of gets together in any sort of communal sort of environment. And I don't know that happens a lot.
Wasn't there a turkey served on TNG?
In the motion picture,
the burnt bird meat that Kern didn't want to eat.
In the motion picture, Kirk got the whole crew together for a big movie watching event at the beginning of the movie.
That is true.
And they even said grace at this one, like in their way. But we'll get to that.
Okay. Well, we'll each just go ahead and give an opening statement to express our broad feelings and reaction to this episode. I'll go ahead and go first, but this is the happiest I've been with Star Trek Discovery all season long. This is the Michelle Paradise show I was hoping for, with the richer character writing that I was expecting from her. And I am very happy with what we're seeing here. I'm happy with Saru as captain. I'm happy with Burnham's function in this episode as a bit of a more traditional first officer or science officer type role in the story. And, she still gets a lot of presence. She still gets to be the main character, but it's refreshing not to see the character burdened with the weight of having to save the universe and having to be like the center of the universe. And it's just like, I feel happy for her that she can be like relieved from all of that pressure and tragedy and all of that. I really enjoyed our new character, Adira. I think she is a welcome addition to the crew. And a Trek character for the Zoomer generation. And of course, me being the big DS9 fan, I loved the Deep Space Nine representation here. It was fun to return to the Trill homeworld and see what it's like on Trill in the 32nd century. So I'm very excited to see what happens next on Star Trek Discovery. Starfleet Boy, would you like to give your opening statement?
Yeah, sure. Basically, for me, I just kept... What was neat about this episode is that it made me think about so many other episodes of Star Trek, more recent Trek, but, it made me think of Deep Space Nine. It made me think of TNG. Like, the Trill story was just, like, really compelling. And then on top of that, it did something that I thought like there was an idea presented about the Trill in TNG, and Dr. Crusher was kind of like, humans are not ready for that. And I just love that now in Discovery, we are going to get like a Trill character that's truly like going to be, far out in the sense of like what it means to be, a person rather. And this whole like, and this whole idea of like the different people we are throughout our lives, and like and carrying those memories and things like that, that there are facets within all of us. I just love that stuff. And I'm so glad it's like, there's a character that presents that. And so I'm in love with Adira. I love this episode. I thought this was like probably a definitive episode for Star Trek Discovery. I think this is one that people will watch over and over again, and it'll go on lists and things like that.
Right on.
Very cool.
Am I up? Are we going clockwise?
Yes. So,
right.
Dave, you're up next. Give us your opening statement, please.
All right. I enjoyed this episode quite a bit. I think I was more into the A plot with Adira than I was into the B plot with Saru's Thanksgiving, which seemed some of that dialogue seemed a little, I guess, dialogue-y to me. I could feel the writer's hand in it. It didn't feel supernatural to me. Super-natural. But I liked Adira's plot a lot. Father, you mentioned her as a Zoomer generation character, but I would certainly hope that the character will have crossover appeal to any generation of Trekkie. And I know you didn't mean exclusively Zoomer.
I just meant she's the youngest regular cast member that the franchise has ever had. For now, there will eventually be someone even younger, but.
In the previous episode, they said she was her character is 16. Is the actress 16? I actually didn't know if that was the case. Or
I assume that she's like 18 or 19 because it's a lot easier to hire someone for one of these jobs if they're a legal adult.
By the way, I just realized, does Blue go by they them pronouns? Am I right?
Yes.
Okay, so she, her on the show, they, them as an actress, right?
Yeah, so I should say I believe that they're 19, I think, actually.
Right on. Anyway, I enjoyed the trip to the Trill homeworld, and I kind of like sometimes seeing happier and impulsive Burnham, but like not like impulsive where it started a war, but like impulsive like where she kicked the ass of some Trill that got a little overzealous. She just like insta went to town on those guys. Overall like a really strong episode to me. This one was very emotional. Only occasionally veered a little into schmaltz for me, but I was generally very on board, and I felt like it was pushing Trek forward in ways that I really liked.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, and I can definitely see that criticism. I feel the same way. Just the overall positives kind of won me over more.
For sure. And like
the other
like the good stuff is like really good in this one, and like it felt like Trek really doing what I want to see Trek doing. Brian?
All right. Put down my pseudo grudge. I really like this one a lot. Part of the reason I loved it was because it hit so many of my favorite tropes when I'm game mastering Star Trek role-playing games. Like so many of them that I one of my friends that I run the game with who watched it with me was like, this felt like one of your games. And yeah, I was like, wow, whereas I think I said that the episode 9 of Lower Decks was one that was written precisely to make me happy. This one appears to be something that I might have written. So, and that I certainly enjoyed that. That is this is the slower pace.
We'll try and get you a co-writer credit on that, Brian.
Yeah, I know Alex Kurtzman listens to Tex-Trek, so keep telling him, Brian will pay you to work on any of your shows.
He must really like giving you some pushback, Father, with those repair droids.
Every time I bring that up, he tells the CGI animators to put in another .7.
They were considering having one at Saru's Thanksgiving.
Oh God!
Just gliding around in the background like a George Lucas add-on.
Yeah. So
sorry,
yes.
Brian, didn't mean to interrupt.
No, that's fine. I wanted to push the .7 button at some point tonight too, but yeah, I just so many of my favorite storytelling tropes. In fact, some that I overuse terribly in my games. Were in this, and I found that delightfully fun. So yeah, that was.
Is it, now let me ask you,
I
Brian.
think it's my favorite episode.
Let me pin you down on that. Is it an ego stroke because there's like, oh, I'm in sync with them, or do you like feel like, oh, that means that I, in my own way have inadvertently, or like not inadvertently, but I have plugged into the nature of Trekkiedom or whatever, or is it just like it's just good drama, and hopefully there's some parallel of dramatic beats.
There's a little bit of all of that, but there's also an immense satisfaction about getting there first in Star Trek. I did these things first. I did this in Star Trek before they did it, and I have to admit that's. And some of these tropes are really simplistic, and things that show up in lots and lots of shows. But there were so many of them in this episode that it struck me, and some of them are kind of specific. But so anyway, I liked it a lot. My favorite of season 3 so far, and I don't know. I'd have to rewatch everything. It might end up being my favorite Discovery. I don't know if it's going to be my favorite of all time, but certainly my favorite of season 3.
But it's enough to make you think that it could have been your favorite of all time.
Yeah. I had to at least think about it a bit.
Yeah.
And Trek on the Tube, our great YouTube friend, he has an amazing channel that everyone should check out, but he is in the live audience and apparently looked it up and has let us know that Blue is 23 years old.
Just one of those folks, one of those people with a very youthful face.
And It's a Small World 1 is joining us, giving us some of her impressions on the episode. And she says, I like this, but I like first episode because it set up the series and we meet Book. I miss him. There's several people in the audience saying that they would have liked to have seen more of Book and Reno, who were both absent in this episode.
I don't know what you would have done with Book in this episode, other than give him a cameo.
It would have been interesting to like I guess he wouldn't be exactly palling around with Saru's, tight crew for Thanksgiving. So yeah, it'd have to be something sort of behind the scenes. And I don't think he's connected with any other crew members other than Burnham yet. Is that right? Other than maybe a little sparring with
Giorgio. Yeah, that was fun. I'd like to see them interact more. But
do you think
she could have bumped into him after walking out with the booze when the party broke up?
Do you guys think it's on purpose that there's no chief engineer or chief medical officer at this point?
I'm going to bring that up.
Oh, you are? Okay, cool.
There's something. In fact, I'm going to bring one of those things up here in a little bit. But we're going to go ahead and kind of bust the episode down, break it apart, talk about it beat by beat. Starting with the opening. Yeah, it started on a bad foot with me. I hate these .7 repair droids. Also, the CGI animators just kind of like jerking themselves off to like the amount of texture they can put on this shit looks ridiculous. They're like all
I actually like the texture.
I agree about the texture issues. I'm totally on your side. I like the .7s, but yeah, that I hate those greebled up holes. So.
But when I saw them, I just laughed in your honor.
I do think it's a testament to this episode's strength that you liked it despite the
I thought about that when I saw that, and then I thought
out of the gate. I've already made my peace with the fact that these dumb things are on the ship. That I'm just but immediately after that, we get this really cool officer's log from Dr. Culpepper, and he actually calls it a medical officer's logs supplemental. So should we assume he's chief medical officer because he's the one given this log entry? But he didn't say chief medical officer. He just says medical officer. And by the end of this episode, you kind of feel like he's going to become like the ship's counselor. So,
well, I did think this was an episode that nicely highlighted why they started putting counselors on ships in Star Trek or in Starfleet. So I thought this was a very good job at oh yeah, that's why we need a counselor on board, is because maybe this guy is doing his best, but he only he took psychology at a 200 or at a 300 level while he was getting his PhD in medicine.
the whole crew is experiencing PTSD right now. So they did in the Ready Room. You know, they like Will Wheaton straight up asked him if he was taking on a counselor role, and you know he's like they don't want to like spoil this, but there was a big smile on Culber's face, and or that is to say, what's the actor's name?
Wilson Cruz.
Wilson Cruz's face, and he's in it. I always like watching the Ready Room stuff. He and Anthony Rapp are on there, and they're both great to see sort of talking. But yeah, I have a feeling that that's in his future. You know, the opening of this sequence, the piano music, which I thought was really beautiful, and the composer was doing a lovely job, reminded me a little bit of some of the piano music that Michael Giacchino had done in the Kelvinverse movies. And a little bit of that opening narration, you know, the kind of walk and talk narration that was going on at the beginning of Star Trek Beyond when Kirk's kind of assessing their listlessness out in space. This is a little bit more serious, but it reminded me in a good way of that. I liked the catch up on the crew, and I liked seeing it through his eyes. If he is going to take on that role, I'm very into that idea.
Yeah, and I like that his tricorder has like the little spinny thing, like Dr. McCoy had in the original series. I'd never noticed that on these medical tricorders before. They have a little spinny gizmo, so that was cool to see. Well,
they
did a
close
close up
of
the
cool
handle.
have.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah. Oh, I was just saying I want that. Like I want a toy of it or something. It was so cool looking.
Yeah.
They did a close up of the handle, and the handle actually looks exactly like one of the versions. Like I almost wonder if they took one of the Playmates toy version and chopped the top off and installed something new there, because the handle looks so much like it was painted white instead of black. But I have that Playmates toy, and I was like, yeah, that looks a lot like it. I also just loved Culber getting a scene that was about Culber. It wasn't Culber being bouncing off of Stamets. It was just Culber being Culber, and getting to shine and getting the spotlight and getting to do the log entry. And I thought that was really nice. And he's really interesting. And we don't do much with this guy.
Yeah, there are times when certain characters can end up feeling a little bit like an appendage of other characters. And I think that the Wilson Cruz always brought more to it than that. But sometimes, yeah, he was the boyfriend, just as some characters are the girlfriend. And so, yeah, it was nice to see him on his own.
And he was uniquely positioned to give a perspective on the ship dealing with this traumatic experience, because he's the guy who was killed and resurrected. So, in the last two seasons. So he's
the guy who knows
been
about
through
some
some
trauma.
shit.
He should probably process that with someone who's themselves a counselor. There was a line he said in that sequence that we had the image up a minute ago, where he was talking to oh gosh, why can't I say her name?
Owo or Detmer?
Detmer, yeah. Where I think it was just his narration around in there, where he was talking about that some of them, it's not easy for them to reach out to help because it's a crew of overachievers. And I thought that was an interesting way to sort of lens it. That these guys, it's maybe not their natural instinct to confess vulnerability. I thought that was a neat bit of writing there.
Yeah. We also saw Reese and Bryce do a fist bump on the bridge. It's like, I don't think they have like any dialogue the entire episode. That's like the only thing they get to do. But
it's a nice moment, though. That's them thinking when we find the Federation.
But they do let us, catch up with the other characters. Remind us Detmer has this PTSD thing. I guess like Tilly. I guess it's a little comic relief. She's like falling asleep on the job. She's able to sleep standing up, by the way, which is impressive. But and that's a thing that gingers can do, actually. Oh, it's a ginger power.
Yeah, I read about it somewhere.
There's no limit to their capabilities.
They end the montage with Adira in sickbay, and they kind of set up the A plot of the story here. She has virtually no memory, not even like her own human memory, but none of the Trill memories either. Just has the slug inside of her and doesn't know where it came from. All she seems to know is the name like Sina Tall, and that's it.
I like that.
It sounds like
squid.
Yeah. I did find it ironic that both brains inside her body have amnesia. I was like, wow, you're more amnesiac than any other character in fictional history. You're double amnesia.
1970s for that level of character amnesia.
Yeah, I will say amnesia though is one of my gaming tropes. That's one of them. Though I usually just do a small segment, a hole in your mind. You're missing a day or something.
Father, can you jump back to that image of Culpepper? I feel like that should get memed. His skeptical Culpepper.
Oh yeah, totally.
just a thought there. Memes.
Can you send that to me, please?
Yeah,
I'll start memeing it. I'll start memeing that right away.
Yeah, they
or maybe it's like Culpepper's not impressed with you or something.
Culpepper's disappointed. But yeah, they decide, okay, well, we don't know anything about Trills other than what we learned from this weird sphere. You don't seem to know anything, so kind of our only option is to go to the Trill homeworld and hope the people there are not going to be total dicks like when we showed up at Earth, and hope that they can help us.
They were only partial dicks on Trill. The Guardians were all right.
Yeah, at least some people were friendly initially.
We'll talk about it more when we get to those scenes, but just real quick, because I haven't seen the DS9 episodes that take place or much that's in and around specific Trill culture. What was their level of dickishness prior to this?
I went back and watched Equilibrium for this episode, and I would say that they were definitely portrayed as arrogant or perhaps, a bit overly confident in their society and everything. Yeah,
the same institution on the Trill world that is being jerks in this episode were jerks. I guess 800 episode or 800 years previous in that episode.
Yeah,
right on.
And there's a huge Trill secret that apparently has never gotten out.
Yeah, I was going to bring that up and ask what people thought about that. So
and Trek on the tube and the comments for people watching this, he's volunteered a caption for the Culpepper meme.
Yes. Oh my God! Someone screenshot that right there. Oh God.
Nice.
If anyone wants to screenshot that,
I'm doing it right now. Done.
But we get to the Trill homeworld, and I was disappointed to see there's one thing they got wrong. There's one detail they missed. They didn't have the purple oceans. That Dax mentioned, that she said the oceans are purple.
That's a big thing.
I would have liked to have seen that.
Have we actually never seen the exterior of the Trill homeworld before?
We have.
We've seen like shots on the planet's surface, but not like a space view of it, I don't believe.
Okay, so we didn't see their oceans.
Yeah, but anyways, they go there and they meet the Commissioner Voss, who shows up, and I thought this was a really smart thing to do, like post-burn Trill. The thing with them has always been that there's some like the more like elite members of Trill society get to be joined with a symbiont, and that's very important to them that like they maintain like these symbiont legacies, and they're able to pass it on from person to person to person, from host to host to host, and they're active. They leave their planet. They go do stuff. They join Starfleet. They go join the diplomatic corps. They're out and about doing things. When the burn happened,
I'm sorry. Is it just a quirk of genetics that determines? It's not like royal bloodlines or something like that, right?
There's a whole episode about that.
Okay.
It turns out that like it's actually not as rare as they thought, but it's also like you have to go through like training and testing. Like they don't just hand one out to anyone.
Okay.
But you also have to be like biologically able to accept it. But apparently not. Yeah, watch DS9 season 3. I think episode 4, Equilibrium.
I'll sneak a watch of it. But it's kind of an elitist thing. So maybe like having that get devastated by the burn was extra ouchy for them. For the elite.
Yeah, like it made sense that like these hosts that were out and about wouldn't be able to like return, and so if they die, if there's no other Trill around, and they can't pass the symbiont on to someone, they're kind of screwed. So the commissioner is all excited to be like, oh my God, a host with the symbiont has returned. It's a big deal.
One thing I was not clear on Are they running short on symbionts or are they running short on Trill? Because I heard lines that seem to support both points of view, but if they're running short on both, then the supply and demand is not actually changed. So I was confused.
They said that they're running low on hosts.
Okay,
I didn't hear them say they were.
Which they would think if the secret never got out about how much of Trill society is actually compatible.
It is possible the secret was lost in the burn if the right people got blowed up.
Yeah, it's true.
Or if things if they've evolved differently, or who knows. Basically they tell Saru, they're like, okay, yeah, bring them down here to the planet. We really want to we want to meet them. Saru doesn't tell them, oh, by the way, it's a human host, so they're not sure how they're going to react to that. Saru is not very upfront in his first contact.
To be fair, they just kind of hung up. I was like, wow, they don't have any questions at all. I guess they're just planning to discuss it once they get down on the surface. But those are some trusting Trill. I would have had some more questions like, who are you? Where did you find this Trill? What's the Trill's name? I would have, and then I found out, the reason they didn't ask questions is so we can have this big confrontation moment face to face rather than over a view screen. But yeah, I did. Even at the moment,
Star Trek Discovery ain't got time for a little side jibber jabber.
Yeah, well, yeah, I literally thought, well, they've only got 40-something minutes to tell this story. Let's get on with it.
Then we get this conversation in engineering that's going to set up one of the subplots of the episode. Oh, it's definitely a subplot because it's dealing with subspace and subatomic particles. But yeah, Saru basically says like, okay, Stamets, you just got stabbed through the chest like a week ago. You could easily be taken off of the board, and then we wouldn't have any way to travel. So we need an alternative interface for the spore drive. That way we don't have to rely on you. You don't have to be, responsible for it. And Stamets is like, no, that's impossible. I've researched this for years. Tilly is like, what if we had like a dark energy interface? And Stamets is like, oh, that's fucking dumb. Why would you say that? You don't waste my time. She was obsessed with dark matter in season 2 when they brought on those dark matter particles in those first 2 episodes of season 2.
Is she obsessed, or are those writers obsessed?
I don't really like dark matter being used something like really prominent like this in Star Trek because it just seems like such like generic sci-fi. Like it's kind of trendy the last decade or two.
Is it dark energy or dark matter? I'm trying to remember now.
I think they said dark matter.
Okay. Yeah, dark matter.
I mean, it's a real phenomenon as far as science can turn, as opposed to Kepion
they're using
particles.
It the way Marvel Comics.
It's a real theoretical thing.
Yeah,
right.
As opposed to Kepion particles, which would just be some made up bullshit. So
it's just sketchy because Neil deGrasse Tyson kind of suggested that it's called dark matter, dark energy, because we don't know what it is. Yeah. And it's like all these years later, they still don't know what it is. Like we're hoping that cosmology is advanced by the time of discovery to a point where they have a fundamental understanding of dark matter and dark energy. So
they were at least able to identify it when they saw it. They were at least able to identify it when they saw it. That's something. That's dark matter.
It's true.
Don't know how it works, but that's it.
It seems like dark matter fills a little bit of the role that, say, radiation did in 60s Marvel Comics as, whatever you need it to be to move a plot forward. Or, I don't know, electricity did in, like, in Frankenstein and pulp stuff like that, or transistors. It's a little bit of the generic technology du jour.
Yeah,
I guess the first time they've ever clarified that the mycelial network exists in subspace, that it is like a subspace realm?
I don't know. Actually.
I like that, though. I like that they tied it like this weird mushroom space thing that's always felt really weird. I like that they tied that into like something that's like old 1960s Star Trek with subspace.
It does remind me of the episode where there was another subspace domain where these aliens were kidnapping the crew members and doing surgeries on them and then wiping their memories and sending them back on Next Generation. Yes, the clicky was. And I wonder, maybe the mycelial network is one of those domains that doesn't have, it doesn't have those aliens. Or heck, maybe it is the same domain, but so.
And Trek on the Tube says, I wouldn't let Stamets touch that shit. He nearly destroyed the multiverse with a couple of mushrooms. God, I wouldn't want him to touch dark matter.
I like Stress-Free K's theory about what dark matter is. It's the power of love, people.
Oh, yeah.
Is that a callback to the power of math?
Stress-Free K says they wanted to establish that there was real love between them, so that Adira's blocking out the death would make sense.
Sutek just gave us the gift of the answer to the episode with the clicky people. It's schisms. Thank you, Sutek.
Yes.
Okay. And It's a Small World says, does jumping hurt the mycelial network still? That is a good question.
I've been wanting them to address that.
Yes.
What? Maybe someday they'll define that. But just what kind of kicks off the I guess Burnham's away mission is Dr. Culpepper goes to her, and
I did have a question. They said there was a comment made that we have all this advanced technology because we're in the 32nd century, so maybe now we can do the thing we couldn't do. So did they get some? Did they pick up a replicator and a replicator database from Earth or not? Because it's that you could just pick up an off-the-shelf replicator and an off-the-shelf replicator database and make all sorts of amazing tech that they don't have.
Wouldn't Burnham have a pretty good idea of like this time period's technology after living here for a year?
So
she would probably be able to tell them like where to go or what kind of options they have.
Yeah, so should we just assume that they've picked up a 32nd century replicator with
Probably
a database
so.
to run it? I mean, that would seem like incredibly obvious thing to do.
I know Disco's writers, they ain't going to say it.
Yeah. True.
That might be something next week when they meet Starfleet, that they might like retrofit the ship with some new high-tech stuff or something like that.
That's true.
The idea of Culpepper selecting Burnham for this away mission, I like that because it gave him some like agency in the larger story. But the conversation between the two of them, where he tells her that you've been through traumatic shit, I've been through traumatic shit, this girl's going through traumatic shit. Like, trust my judgment, you're the right person for this. And he calls her a responsibility hoarder, which she is, I guess.
You know what I liked? I liked these sort of. He said it in a kind of playful, gentle way, which, like he was, and like she was able to kind of take it in that same vein, and she's like, "I'm working on that." She wasn't like the kind of lightness that the level the conversation was at. It didn't get too deep, too serious.
But the show is acknowledging, like, we've literally like made this woman responsible for the life of every living thing in the universe. It's a traumatic deal.
Yeah. I agree that. Sorry, I agree that the bringing this to light was kind of a good thing because it means that there's an awareness. The character has a flaw. It's a flaw the character's aware of. It's not just something the audience perceives, but maybe it came about because the writers are like, we have to do this.
That's kind of a bold move to like acknowledge like you're gonna change things with like your main character. That you're gonna, admit that like, oh yeah, maybe we can write her a little bit better. Maybe we can like do things a little differently with this character. That's kind of brave because you're fundamentally altering parts of your show and also kind of acknowledging that maybe we made mistakes. Maybe we should have done this sooner. At least some people are going to interpret it that way.
Father, you pointed out something which I think was always a good point. You've mentioned it on several occasions. The sort of ebullience of Sonequa Martin Green, the actress, and kind of sort of forced to be in the sort of more reserved of Michael Burnham. And by giving her this year off, sort of off screen, but also without all the weight of Starfleet on her shoulders. I mean, yeah, she had responsibilities, but she kind of got to also just have like a road trip with a dude. Like it's a reasonable way to, if you just say her character's changed some off screen, that I think that's a reasonable way to do it. They've been away that long.
I will say the I was raised by Vulcans thing, like there's not, I mean, you would never guess it if you started with season 3. I mean, you can still see that she's very intelligent and thoughtful and keeps herself under control to some degree, but not as much as before. But you wouldn't have guessed that if you started with that she'd been raised by Vulcans if you started with season 3. So that is definitely all you would know is
that she likes giving that Vulcan hello when the Trill get a little bit antsy.
I did think you guys said that, and I guess Stress-Free K, I think Culber also realized that Burnham is pretty adjusted to this new universe, but the crew needed him more. I felt the thing that was weird is this conversation was the way this conversation sounded, it was like they were talking about one of those next generation shuttle pods, which have 2 seats. Like, just because you're sending Michael doesn't mean you can't also send Culber.
But they only have 88 people, so they probably don't want to send too many.
And I was also thinking, if there was somebody I was going to put next to Adira as a support to provide a bit of support, it would be Tilly, closer to the same age, but is also just gone through Starfleet Academy, whereas Adira wants to go into Starfleet Academy. Tilly's gone through some crazy crap and seems to be handling it better than a lot of the crew members does, and she makes a wonderful first impression.
I think that's a good point. I think that they almost certainly did Burnham, because she's just a more leading character.
Yeah, and I can see how
Burnham's also like a little bit more experienced and capable than Tilly.
Yeah, true. Walking amongst Trill.
I would have said Burnham and Tilly, because you need somebody who can diplomatically handle crazy whatever's going to happen down there with this second contact situation that they've got going on. But you also need a good support for what's her name. Now, Holly suggested, my wife, that it might be that Culber is actually playing a bit of a trick here. He thinks that Michael will be healthier if she has Adira to look after, that will help her get over some of her issues and reconnect with the crew or something. And I thought, that makes a little more sense of this scene, at least from my point of view, is if Culber's playing a slightly tricky game about who really is needing the help here. So anyway, that was my observations on that.
On Starfleet Boy, we wanted Owo to go down because she did really good in the Terralizium episode. Yeah, New Eden, and might have been calmer than Burnham tends to be in situations.
But, Burnham gets shit done. I agree. So you need someone who can, she's going to be like a little excited. She's going to get shit done. And maybe
Burnham is more. Maybe Burnham the ambassador isn't the best role for her.
Well,
ironically, because her stepbrother's the best ambassador, right?
And her dad, her Vulcan,
and her dad.
I think Burnham season 2 would have been a perfectly acceptable ambassador, but perhaps Culber has not yet come to terms with just how much Burnham has changed between season 2 or 1 or 2 and 3. So.
I started liking Adira when we get this conversation between her and Burnham. I didn't really see much of her last week to go off of, but I like the actor's performance here. I was kind of impressed. I was like, oh yeah, she's actually like a really good actor. Like her reactions and stuff, her just overall performance is pretty strong, and the way that Burnham kind of like tricks her into like accepting help is kind of how you kind of have to deal with like kids sometimes, is that they won't admit, they have a hard time like admitting that like they want help, or like they want you to do something with them, so you're just kind of like, okay, we'll just go do it by yourself. And they're like, well, if you really want to do this with me, okay, I'll let you.
Well, I think she doesn't want to be the fifth wheel on this ship. She wants to be one of the crew. So she's trying to make a good first impression. And to her, that means not looking like she's a somebody who needs her hand held all the time. So I totally get where she was coming from with her kind of, I don't know if macho is quite the right word, but
she certainly has like some sort of some bravado and even overconfidence. I would say she's a prodigy.
Yeah. Of course, I hated seeing that .7 robot in the shuttle bay. But
now they're getting into the ship.
Yeah, it looks like right at the camera, like it's looking at me.
Yeah.
Well, you said that Alex Christian
Fathery
watches
woke
the show,
up
so
last night. Fathery woke up last night screaming, remembering the scene.
That droid needs to get the Vulcan hello.
Yeah, it's like Attack of the Clones when Jar Jar looks at the camera. Just to I know that you hate me, but I'm back. It's like that's what it felt like.
I think Blue Spark is a Drunk Space Nine listener, and I like what they said. Adira is a great character for younger audience members to relate to.
Yeah.
Cool. Totally.
I really liked her line about I don't want to let anyone down. I thought that was that nicely that made that it was good. I thought it was well delivered. I thought the whole that whole beat worked really well for me.
And Burnham's response, like she kind of slightly laughs to herself, like, "Oh, I get why Hugh paired me up with her."
Yeah,
like
it was like,
that
this is like what I sound like. Why did they take a shuttle instead of beaming down?
That's a good question.
The shuttles look cool.
Yeah. Like in Star Trek The Next Generation,
I have no idea though.
They established that Trill can't use transporters, but the Deep Space Nine ignored that, and we saw and transport technology might have changed from
that might be a point. What if you have to make a modification to the transporter to make it Trill safe, and they hadn't gotten that done yet? The sphere data hadn't maybe told them how to do it, but they weren't sure they wanted to risk it quite
Even though
yet.
she has a portable transporter that she was using last week.
Now, she could have used her. Can that take two people, or is
that?
It sounds like a lost plot point. Like maybe there was like a line of dialogue and they just cut it for time.
Shuttles look cool.
They had a big box of money sitting around with nothing to spend it on other than CGI shuttle shots.
When we meet the kind of the Trill welcoming party on the planet, they're kind of color coded. So we have I guess the red robes are like the spiritual monks, which was something they didn't really have with Trill before in any of the DS9 stuff. We didn't really see any.
The one character was kind of intuitive though in Equilibrium. He's able to tell
the Guardian.
The Guardian, and I think that those are the Guardians in red.
Yeah, they should have made these the Guardians, but instead they're like, this is like the spiritual people.
Is there a difference between that? I mean, can't you have a Guardians inside your religion?
But Father, in Equilibrium, the DS9 episode, that Guardian who's taking care of the pool is able to sense Dax without knowing. He doesn't even know Jadzia, and he's able to sense Dax, and he's able to tell that Dax is having these memories by just holding his hand near her where the symbiont was. So I think that the Guardians always did have a spiritual weird connection with, or at least some kind of connection with.
They do call the leader of the spiritual community he is Guardian Z,
right?
XIZ. Yeah. And then the who else do we have? The leader in the white robe. She's leader Pev or Pav was her name, and then the commissioner is Commissioner Voss in the yellow robe, who turns out to be the asshole. He's offended. He's like, "Oh my God, you put one of our symbionts inside of a human. You're an abomination. We need to rip this thing out of her right now." Which we learned from DS9.
Abomination is a strong word.
Yeah, well, we learned from DS9 that when you remove a symbiont, you kill the host. They'll die shortly after. So it would almost mean certain death for Adira, and so that's a problem.
I guess we know why they're wearing orange. So.
Someone
they're the
said,
assholes.
Someone said that this might be kind of a pro-choice, kind of a her body, her choice type thing, where they want to remove the symbiont from her, but that's not something that she's okay with doing. So Burnham kind of stands up for her, and she's like, "No, you're not going to do this procedure on her when she doesn't want it."
Yeah, I saw that comment. I think that's. I don't know how much that was thought about in the writers' room, but I like the idea.
So I did like, or at first I was annoyed that Michael goes down with this big Type 2 phaser pistol, when I'm thought this is a nice, friendly medical aid, first contact diplomatic-y thing. Why wouldn't you use the cricket, the little Type 1s, which we know they have because you can see it attached to the top of the pistol. But then I thought, oh no, this is Michael who's seen some shit. She's been around. She knows how crazy the galaxy is. She's taken the big phaser. So once
I'm sure some of those courier runs got dicey fast, and she's oh, you never know when some old enemy might just show up.
Yeah.
Right.
So once I realized that, I was like, okay, if it had been somebody else, I would have been annoyed. But then I was like, yeah, this is Michael, who's had a year on the streets. She ain't messing around with those crickets anymore. So.
Yeah, and I saw a comment from Stress Free K in the chat. How did Riker survive his de-trilling in the Next Generation? That was when they were first, establishing the Trill. So I don't think they had established many of the rules yet. But I think that was just that was never a successful permanent bond.
Yeah.
So they kind of established that was just a temporary, half measure type of thing to just pull this off for a few days, and then it's not going to take fully, and then they got to pull the plug on it.
And things went very differently. Riker was completely subsumed in that case, and it was entirely the other guy talking through Riker's mouth.
They establish here that there's never been a successful bond with a non-Trill host, which with that Riker example is they could pull it off for a few days, but not for a permanent bond. And so I think that's what we're meant to interpret. But the leader, Pav, she says, okay, we're not going to force separate you, but you have to get the hell off of our planet because you're just going to piss a bunch of people off if you stay here. So it's kind of Earth, where they're just leave. We don't want you here.
I did think it was odd that they didn't say, well, we're going to have to continue this on your ship out of the sight of the public. But they're totally willing to give up the symbiote over the cultural ramifications of this getting in the press.
Well, it deals with one of the bigger themes of the episode. I think one of the bigger themes of Forget Me Not is about kind of clinging on to your past and kind of but at the same time, not processing your trauma. And that's kind of the thing here where she says, the only thing we have left is our ideas. And it's kind of culturally, they're not, they haven't accepted the severity of their compromised situation and said okay, we might have to expand beyond just Trill, and we might have to look into other species as hosts. And this actually might be an opportunity. This isn't an affront to our belief system. This might be our golden ticket of our salvation.
Maybe they would have been a little calmer if they had gone to Saru's Thanksgiving dinner.
Yeah, well,
I don't think that would have helped convince them of the competence of the Discovery crew.
Could have made it extra awkward. Yeah.
But Commissioner Voss is instead of escorting them back to the shuttle, he's no, I'm going to take the symbiont. And I like that these guards he has, they have the glowy sticks. It felt very TOS. It was very TOS throwback. That they'd have weapons like this. But of course, Michael Burnham can make short work of them because she is a badass when it comes to physical confrontation.
She really looks
even
like
seemed
it in the scenes.
Almost blasé about how she kicked their ass.
She knows about the caves. They want to get to the caves of McElroy because that's where the Guardian Z had wanted to take them. And when Voss when he's no, I'm not going to tell you how to get there, she's just okay, good night, or whatever she says. He just stuns them.
Yeah.
But I like that they remember if you have stun weapons, it's very easy to if bad guys don't do what you want them to do, you just make them take a nap,
Yeah. Especially if you're Michael Burnham, and
they forget. I love the animated series episode, the Lorelei Signal, when Uhura beams down with the all-woman security team, and the aliens in that episode, they weren't when she's like, where's the captain? Where's Spock? Where are all the men? And like those aliens like, we're gonna tell you anything. She's like, okay, and she just stuns all of them. And it's like, I guess we can go look for it. It's like, yeah, you can stun people.
Yeah,
it does seem like Adira in this screenshot you just had up was not ready for that.
But
to be honest, I think Saru would have a similar look on his face at this point.
Yeah,
like, Commander Burnham.
Yeah, it did occur to me that this
shock face.
At first, I thought, see, if you'd brought Tilly along, this would be the moment where Michael says, okay, Tilly, sneak through the woods, get in the shuttle, take off, act like we're on board so nobody realizes we're still down here on the planet, and it'll take us until these bozos wake up before anyone raises an alarm. And then I realized the problem is Tilly gets back up and then it sabotages your whole Thanksgiving thing because everyone's worried about the problem on the planet. And you need everyone on Discovery to think everything's going fine on the planet for the story to work, I guess, because Saru wouldn't be all angsting about what kind of crackers to serve.
It needed to be purely about their problems on the ship, their internal stuff.
So I guess we just have to assume the Trill are really slow at catching on that these guys never took off.
Those were video game guards where they immediately went back on patrol when they woke up.
Yeah.
Well, Guardian Z is like the nice Trill that we have, and so he's like, okay, come with me. I'll take you to the caves of McElroy. And they get there. It was really cool to return to this location that was introduced in DS9. But I guess what they need to do is they need to put Adira into the symbiote pool with the other slugs swimming around in there. And there's kind of I don't know if they went into a lot of detail with it here, but there's like electric pulses that like these things communicate with each other mentally through like electric pulses and the liquid. And so like if they put her in there, they could like stabilize her mind, hopefully. And with the goal in mind of being able to restore her memories, that'll help the Discovery crew, that'll help Adira, and that'll help the Trill here if they're able to successfully.
It felt all very sort of mysticky to me. Like I wasn't quite sure. I didn't quite understand how it was all supposed to work, but I understood that it kind of was like sci-fi mysticism, like, yes, we're doing it with energy impulses, but the net effect is like, the kind of dreams that Merlin or, other like magical type characters have.
And I had a little bit of issue with that too. It felt more fantastical here than it did on Deep Space Nine, where I think it was meant
to feel like this. They just didn't have the budget to make their cave look as good as this cave did. But I kind of feel like that's what they were going for all along.
I do too. DS9. I agree with that.
I mean, I'm a very like secular-minded person in real life, so I kind of like I view everything through that lens. And if you have like I guess coded spirituality, it's probably gonna. In all honesty, it probably is going to like go over my head. It's not something that I look for or detect.
This was another gaming trope. If you go to a planet, you got to visit all the most memorable places from the TV show or movies, and this was definitely the most memorable place on Trill. So we have to have some scenes there. But
yeah, and he has like this orb, which was kind of like a weird machine and almost seems like kind of like a magical device, kind of like a crystal ball or something. But
it looked like a motorcycle helmet with a glowing blue ball in it.
Maybe that's what it was. You have to ask the prop guy on Twitter. Maybe he can tell you. But yeah, it actually has like a pretty cool scientific use that I'll bring up in the Gorn eggs later at the end of the show. But yeah, they put Adira into here and she drifts away and this thing's, doing like weird mental stuff to her, I guess. All of a sudden, like it kind of becomes unstable. The orb cracks and then, oh no, like the party is crashed by the other Trill. They all show up right when Adira is kind of like, it's concerning. All of a sudden she sinks down into the water and vanishes.
It was cool how they made that happen. They talked about it on the Ready Room. It was pretty neat. Like,
the behind the scenes stuff is kind of neat on that. It's funny how like they have like a bunch of stuff that's like very high tech, and then there's some things that are very simple, like when she suddenly submerges dramatically, literally a guy under her holding a handle type thing they built to pull her under, and he just has to hold his breath waiting for his cue. Like it's just like very old school at times.
Yeah. And that's a lot of times like those old practical things, they're still incredibly effective. But This is where, Dave, you had mentioned to me previously when we were talking about this last night that Michael is very impulsive. I think you were referring to this when she's just like, okay, I'm diving in to get her.
Yeah.
They're like, y'all aren't going to stop me. Like, someone's got to go in there. So
I think I was actually specifically thinking about how quickly she kind of drew down on the Trill, but it's like it's multiple things. She is kind of a still has remained an impulsive person. If I were, I don't know that they've ever spelled this out, but if I were sort of psychoanalyzing the character, I'd say that that's one of the ways that she kind of resisted her Vulcan upbringing was to have this impulsive streak.
I did like that their other Trills aren't like complete hard asses about it when they catch them, and they're like, oh no, we're gonna lock you up. It's all over, and because a lesser sci-fi shows would just, these are the good guys and these are the bad guys, and the bad guys are always bad and the good guys are always good. They're like, no, okay, we've gone this far. Let's see what happens.
Even back in the very first Star Trek episode ever made with the Cage. Yeah, there's typically some nuance to your antagonists in Star Trek. That is a tradition. But yeah, Burnham kind of does the weird trance thing too, and then vanishes under the water. And this is where it felt like kind of more like fantasy, when there's like this whole other realm that I guess is supposed to be like within Adira's mind, but then like where did their bodies go when like Burnham's in the water? She's like, I can't find Adira's body.
Yeah,
so are they physically transported?
Disappeared.
Yeah, it just feels a little bit more, slightly more fantasy than I would prefer in my Star Trek. It doesn't ruin the story for me, but it's just it is not my preference.
See, Father, the water in the pool is H2O16, so if you drown, you can actually breathe. No, I don't know.
Again, this is one of my favorite tropes when I'm running my games is shared dreamscapes inside somebody's head, or maybe even both people's head. I do this all the time.
Yeah, Brian, that's you're like everything.
Yeah,
shared dreamscapes in sort of fantasy, and I also I've seen this as a trope in like superhero settings quite a bit. Like, just as a random example, Hulk's had lots of personalities in the comics over the years, and there's been at least a few issues I think written where he, in an internal mindscape, the different personalities all sit down and talk to each other.
Yeah, well, it's also it's a hyper visual medium, and artists love to like draw, stuff. Like I've talked to comic book artists that are like, yeah, like I'll get like these scripts that are very like normal real world stuff, but I'll try to come up with like these insane like otherworldly type images to put in there because that's what I want to draw.
Or just do dramatic angles and things like that to liven it up.
I will say all this could have happened in 2 minutes, so they could have just been, underwater for 2 minutes and pop back up as far as everyone else is concerned.
Narnia water.
Yeah, but where did Adira go? Like, why couldn't Michael find her body in there?
I assume there's just a hole down in the bottom that goes into a lower chamber.
Yeah. There's a bunch of those worms, like, are just like holding her down.
Actually, maybe it would have been a very boring thing where she would have been like, she's gone. Oh, nope, she was just a few feet over to the right. I found her.
Maybe. But
let me try to pull her out, and then boom, she's in the vision.
She does find her when she enters like the weird dreamscape where she's all freaked out, and I thought it was very visually interesting, all those weird the threads that they're trying to connect to. It's also like kind of scary.
Yeah.
Especially like if you ever watched like animated Japanese pornography, or I mean like it could be exciting. Depending on what you're into, it could be exciing.
Are you talking about like tentacle hentai or tentacle?
I was trying to beat around the bush.
On a metaphorical level, though, it works because the idea of like trying to actually like self-examine to see what your own difficulties are is a scary and strange and eerie sort of thing. So I think it works on that level.
And the tentacles are all her memories trying to get back to her conscious mind. They're in her unconscious, and they're trying to get into her conscious mind. And she's afraid of those memories. She instinctively knows this is not going to be fun.
The theme of the episode about like not wanting to like think about like your past, not wanting to like deal with your trauma, like trying to like, run from it. She says like, if I stand in one spot too long, these things will come for me. So I'm like moving around. That's like that idea of like not being able to let yourself admit that, okay, this is a hard thing that I got to deal with. It's part of me. And then it's kind of embracing it and and what Culber said about like that post-traumatic growth, having that growth process. So
I think also there's a degree of like, even though she's protecting the tall symbiont, it's very painful. I think the blackout came from the fact that it's very painful whenever maybe Gray tried to emerge and connect. Adira may have blocked that, and so that was the final step, was like her kind of like allowing Tall to completely connect with and be one with Adira, and so she finally let go of that block, which was great, and the reward is extraordinary. I mean, she gets her lover back in a weird new
let's
kind
talk about
of way.
Gray.
Yeah.
Let's talk about Tall and the flashback.
Again, we have I did want to point out, being forced to confront whatever it is you're psychologically afraid of. That's another trope from my games.
Nice. I need to get in on. I need to get in on your games. They sound really
Brian,
exciting.
going forward, you should tell us. You should tell us what aspects of this episode are not part of your game. but yeah, like this whole flashback thing, like Adira is kind of reluctant to look into her past, and then she keeps trying to like pull out of it, and Burnham has to kind of like push her, like no, like you need to do this. So it is something that's like painful. But if you put all the flashback stuff together without like those sequences of her coming out, I'll just run through the events quickly. But she was an orphan on a generational ship with her boyfriend, this young Trill named Gray, who is played by Ian Alexander. We were told about him several weeks ago. He is the first openly transgender actor in Star Trek. He's a trans male character. But yeah, the character Gray is Adira's boyfriend on this generational ship. It's off trying to find Starfleet. So this is that outbound ship that Admiral Tall must have died on. And after he died, the Trill the symbiont was implanted in Gray, probably the only other Trill on the ship, we can assume. And there's this process of this procedure to do that, where we see flashbacks of Adira, worried about losing her boyfriend. Is he going to be the different after he goes through this? And he goes through this procedure, and he says, I'm still me, but I'm just more. I'm all these other memories and experiences, and now I can play the cello really well. And I thought their relationship really worked. We get to spend a little bit of time with just them being in love. Adira watching Gray play the cello, and giving him this gift that she made for him. What did y'all think about the romantic stuff here? I thought it was actually pretty effective. I bought it.
I loved it.
I noticed our commenters seem slightly divided.
Oh, I thought it was great. I loved watching it. And again, I spent the last year of my role-playing game with two 14-year-old kids of LGBT status, let's say broadly, in a romance while they were on a mission trying to save their parents, and that they were in love. And this was like, wow, this feels like the last year of my game. Them getting horribly hurt and having to do crazy things to save each other, again, just like my game.
I think
That's
that
amazing.
it veered maybe like a few times. This is one of those things that veered a little too schmaltzy for me, but I'd say like 90% of it I liked. I think the fact that they had sort of that playful banter, they call each other idiot and stuff like that, and that Adira could be genuinely concerned about the change, which kind of feels like it fits into a very metaphorical Star Trek-y way of also discussing people who transition. That all kind of came together for me. I thought it was really good.
Yeah.
And I felt a lot of it came from the performance in Adira. Like she played like the insecurity of like, oh, you're like this amazing cello maestro now, and I'm just like this weird kid that likes to make art, and like all of that stuff. I bought into it hook, line, and sinker, and then
They have great chemistry. They are
I thought so too.
They have excellent chemistry.
the chemistry is there, and I thought it was a neat idea that the the gift that she made was the quilt, the tapestry.
that broke my heart. That's what did it.
Because that's such like a sweet idea of like, oh yeah, this is like
Yeah.
all of our memories of our relationship. This is like, you know, when the replicator wouldn't stop making apples, or when we were playing imaginary chess.
I predict quilt giving going up in the Star Trek nerd community.
Yeah. Well,
romance
if people
community
are back on
this
lockdown,
holiday.
if they're at home, they don't have anything
Yeah.
better to do.
I liked that the quill was clearly handmade. It wasn't something she designed on a computer and then pressed replicate. That was a nice, and it kind of looked a little crappy because of that, but that was endearing. And you said it was a little schmaltzy. This is 2 years ago, right? This flashback that I thought they said.
Yeah, I think that's what they said. Yeah,
I thought they said. So they're 14, which is the same age as the kids in my game, but 14-year-olds are schmaltzy when they're doing stuff like this. That's how they're going to do it.
Why can't I be a teenager?
Even the cheese felt real, like real cheese.
Sometimes sometimes it's the music
Good
and
point.
stuff too. Like that, like I would rather let the characters like pull me in than the music tell me, be touched right now. Yeah. And so sometimes the schmaltz is more like that. But I'd say like 90% of it I like. And I'm with Adira. If I was dating someone and they were suddenly like a concert level violinist or cellist, I'd be like, oh, I suck. So,
yeah.
I'm not down with that. I would have trouble dating a Trill.
Yeah, that would be, especially if you're so young and so inexperienced, incredibly intimidating to have somebody that much.
Someone who has 800 years of life experience.
Overnight, literally, it must be something. And so and from Gray's perspective, now Gray has the memories of all these other hosts, so Gray all of a sudden has all their romances, and so now Gray's like a boss, like a boss,
and also has the perspective. Let's be honest here, that this is not necessarily the only person I'll ever be in love with.
Right.
When it's your first love, you absolutely feel that this is it. This is the one. Yeah. There can be no other. So that too would be, there's all sorts of fascinating stuff going on. In fact, honestly, realistically, I'm not sure the relationship would survive it, but it's science fiction, so I'll let it pass.
Yeah.
I hope it all works out in whatever way as the story continues.
In the comments, Trek on the Tube mentions, I think this romance was a bit much personally. It doubled down on the melodramatic style of Discovery and would have cut a bit out.
Trek on the Tube would hate my games.
But I do think that Discovery, I think sometimes I think melodramatic successfully and sometimes melodramatic unsuccessfully. It's one of I probably my bigger overall issues with it is I think it speaks to sometimes that unearned emotional payoff that you were talking about an episode or two back, Fathery. But it sounds like for most of us here, this one hit though.
And what also hit was that big ass asteroid that collided with the ship.
Well done.
Caused massive damage, and Gray ended up being impelled by this.
I actually didn't know what it was.
It
It bothered me slightly that I was. Did the computers say like proximity warning or something?
It was a dark asteroid. They couldn't tell it was coming.
Dark matter. It's all.
It's a dark asteroid.
These are the post-burn ships, so they're flying around at sub-light speed because it's the slow ass generational ship. So they're probably like, oh, we don't need deflectors. We're probably not going to hit anything.
I wonder where the ship was. I wonder. I hope that we get some flashbacks, maybe to spend a little time on the generational ship, because it is a fascinating concept, like to be on a generational ship. But yeah, you're right. Like, for all we know, someone
we might see from here on.
I kind of feel like generational ships are kind of, I don't know. That's kind of like weak, low-level shit for my Star Trek. Like I want like a little bit more high tech.
If you don't have warp drive, I guess you're gonna freeze everybody in the two cylinders.
No, I agree. It makes sense, but it's not something I'm interested in spending time with.
By the way, their tech was high tech. I love the medical, like during the symbiont transfer scene with those floating
those droids from the opening credits. We finally see those in action.
Yeah, and then this droid too was great. Like how it was like just I love that it like appeared right away. It was assessing, and you could tell it could do the surgery really well.
And that's one of the droids from the credits, right?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I thought it was so heartbreaking to see like this quilt that we're like, oh, we just got introduced to this thing, but we like it so much, and now it's like covered in blood. I was like, this character is dying. It's like like this relationship ends covered in blood with death.
Yeah. You got to turn that knife. Just turn it. Your players will take it. Trust me. Just keep twisting. Never miss a chance to impale your 14-year-old PC.
So one of the criticisms I've heard is that people were kind of beaten up on Discovery for killing off Dr. Culpepper in season 1. I had never heard of this before it happened in Star Trek, but the bury your gay trope.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
People basically express that they're tired of seeing gay characters killed on TV shows. Apparently, it happens.
Or you kill the black guy. Or you kill the black guy.
Yeah, well, Discovery did both.
I think it is a poor trope because I get the behind it. It's like to make these characters martyrs so they stick with you a little more and you like kind of feel like more you want to like stand for them or whatever. But yeah, we're past that. I think now I'm glad we got to stop doing that.
Do you think that they doubled down on it here with what happened to Gray as like the first trans character?
Because of the ending, I would say no, but I am again not in that community, so maybe I shouldn't be talking.
I would just say oddly, it's weird that Discovery has had a haunting every season. I brought this up, but like there was Hugh haunts Stamets, and then May haunts Tilly, and now Gray is haunting.
Interesting, yeah.
But I actually like what you said, Brian. Like I don't know if I really have like the right to an opinion on that situation specifically. So if anyone does feel that way, I would love to hear about it. And I think you should definitely voice that opinion. Just for me, the storytelling here was very effective, and I would compare this more to like the opening of Star Trek 09 or the opening of Deep Space Nine, where they kind of introduce like they kind of kick off a story with like the death of a character, but it's in a very it's in a way that kind of builds a lot of the emotional investment right off the bat. Something that like I said last week, Discovery has lacked. Yeah. So this is actually like an earned emotional investment for me that I don't typically get with this show. So I really love it because of that. And
I guess
well, go ahead.
I would point out that Culpepper's death removed a character. This is really the introduction story, adding a character to the cast.
Yeah, that's a good point.
A ghost character, but from a narrative point of view, when you step back, they just added a character to the cast.
Yeah.
And again, I don't know if I'm qualified to speak on this topic, so
I saw it
pissing
compared
people off,
somewhere.
and I apologize. I'll
I saw it compared somewhere to what do you call it? The and Battlestar Galactica and the presence of was it 6?
Yeah, Baltar and 6. Yeah, it's kind of like that. Except with actually
I'm gonna guess with less sex, but I don't know.
Or maybe more. I don't know. Like
I mean, there's definitely
focus on it less, but
there's definitely precedence. There's definitely precedence that hosts can sometimes manifest as a dreamlike hallucination.
Yeah, we're gonna talk about that in the Gorn eggs.
But I just want to say, like, as someone who explored maybe asexuality and gender identity in high school, I wish I had a character like this. To kind of make it less awkward than it was. And I do appreciate, again, someone in the comments, I think, said, like, Adira and Gray are great characters for youth. And I think this is the reason why, because they are kind of presenting new ideas about this stuff. And I think it's great for young people growing up today where gender identity is not as like binary, no pun intended, as it was when I was growing up.
Yeah, not only is it a good thing for people that relate to that type of stuff to be able to see that representation, but I think also for the rest of us to be able to when I was the age of these characters, like I didn't know what transgender was or like gender non-binary or like any of that stuff. I mean, this is stuff most of us just learned within the last 5 or 10 years. So I think it is good to push it to the.
I experienced a tragic I experienced a tragic sort of personal experience. We won't get too deep into it, Father. I don't want to hijack that, with giving personal information, but just someone I knew transitioned way early on before it was when only Wendy Carlos, if you guys know who that is, was an example of a trans person.
Mhm.
And to me, it's just great. This showed me why representation is so important. Is all I should say there.
Now, there is one little kind of a possible plot hole, is that if no one had ever done like a successful symbiont transfer into a human, why did these droids? Was this like a desperation move, or is this something that maybe Admiral Tall, before he died, maybe he had like looked into, like, in case something happens to me and Gray both, the symbiote can live through like this procedure or something?
It could just be, Dr. Crusher making some crazy medicine on the fly, because that's the only thing that's going to work. And these droids could be like sapient, or the computer that runs the droids could be sapient. So they could quite easily, you could just put it down to, all right, we have this symbiote's going to, the rescue team's not going to get there for 6 hours because of burning vacuum filled hallways. The only choice is this other kid. So
if we would have known exactly what they were doing, though, there would have been more payoff at the end of this when we kind of wrap things up with the Trill. I'll bring it up when we get to that, but
okay.
just to get us from here to there,
did you guys like the death scene that we got? I guess I
like it. Was very effective on me.
Yes.
Yeah,
it worked.
It hit all the right buttons for me personally that I think they were reaching for.
Yeah, I cried. So
the fact that they showed that Adira had been going through these doubts, as far as dramatic beats go, I found it really affecting to have her like, oh, I don't know how I feel. You're different now. I'm not sure what I think. And then in this, the biggest moment of crisis, about to lose her lover, she is able to say, I will, fulfill this deepest of possible obligations and carry on your legacy personally. It was just, super touching.
It was cool to see all of the symbionts, and we learned that like this Trill must be at least old enough to go to the time of Star Trek Picard, so like 800 years old. You think they maybe would have had like more than 7 hosts, but
Trill lifespans are pretty impressive with that medical technology of the future.
Yeah, I'm just saying like Dax was a lot younger and had a lot more. Dax had like 8 hosts and was only like 400 years old.
Yeah, but Dax played hard and fast and got herself killed much more often.
Well, what do you think about how like Admiral Tall is the only like elderly host?
Yeah, I assume like most of these are we're just kind of seeing like the face that they want to project, not necessarily what they look like at death.
Yeah, this is like forced questions.
Yeah, Gray doesn't have a big hunk of stuff sticking out of her chest.
But it was cool. It was cool to see it was cool to see Adira and Gray get to see each other again, and then Admiral Tall. I like that we kind of had like this build up to like meeting this character that they've been talking about since last week, and he was like this nice old grandpa. He's like friendly and everything, and like they're so like welcoming to Adira into the group. And, and Michael Burnham is thanking him. Thank you for the message you sent out.
Yeah, well, go ahead, Dave.
I hardly feel like old white men need more representation, but we've seen enough kind of like rogue Starfleet admirals and stuff like that, and there's sometimes every once in a while, I see the I'm going to say the conservative faction of Star Trek being like, I guess I must be an old white man. We have no rights or whatever. Well, here was an old white man who seemed like a sweetheart. So
so is Guardian Z. He's a nice old white man. I don't think they were. True. I don't think they were like really aiming for any message in that, but
I don't think so either.
I felt like Guardian Z was closer to my age, so now I feel old. But thanks a lot.
I loved the sequence of all these different aspects, and again, that's something else I do in my dreamscapes all the time is personification of aspects of your personality as separate individuals that you can talk to, like in the Hulk comics. It was just beautiful to see them all come up and look, here it is. We're all together symbolically. Right. It's
Welcome
all
to the circle.
Communications. It's flowing.
Was Welcome to the Circle something we've heard before? Is that something that they say?
I think that's new.
That's something new, and I didn't like it.
No, you didn't. Why?
I don't know. It just felt weird. It felt like they're making like.
Well,
this
I guess circle
big
is sort of
deal
a specific thing, and maybe like the lineage might feel like more reflective of how they speak about it. But
it was just
but I
like
do
that
kind of like it
discovery
because
thing.
it means
Like it kind of felt like that discovery. Like we're gonna force this to be like so ceremonious, and
maybe
It is
I
a
don't know. In
big
a
deal
circle,
for her.
no point is more important than any other point on a circle, and they're all linked. I kind of like it now that I think about it.
And
What
for
is-
her, for Adira, this is a big deal. She just unlocked all of this experience. This is quite
she's
possibly
the one.
the biggest deal that will ever happen to her brain.
What I think was cool was that they did integrate the DS9. Dax kind of does this like gesture in equilibrium, and
I wondered about that too.
Yeah, and so it kind of echoes that, and I thought that was cool.
But I felt like they kind of made a mountain out of a molehill with that. That was kind of like a small thing in the original. But anyways, Adira now is like, she knows all the towels. She has all their memories, everything. So everyone's really happy and impressed, and all the other Trill are like, oh, this is so cool.
Why are they happy? How is this going to? I wasn't entirely clear how this is going to help the rest of the Trill.
Because they tell the leader tells Z, like, you've revolutionized this now. Like, now we can start using non-Trill hosts. So now we will have hosts for all of our symbionts. The reason why I said they needed to explain what those droids did 2 years earlier, the reason why that needed to be clarified, because I don't know what the hell happened here, why it worked this time, and why is it repeatable. And I think that's kind of an important thing to overlook, because we're left with the impression, okay, Guardian Z can repeat this now, but like how? Wow, like he didn't really do anything.
Yeah,
but like he gets kind of the credit. It kind of felt like Discovery being Discovery there for a moment with that. I wish they would have.
And are they if they can now figure out how to do humans, that means they can do all the other unfit Trill. Can now that we've figured out the trick for doing the unfit Trill, or is it still humans work better than actual Trill?
But Adira says the symbionts aren't just for the Trill; they're here for everybody. So I think the idea is that like now this planet is going to like open its doors to other species to like select hosts from beyond the Trill population.
Imagine if Gray and Adira's story was Dax and Worf's story. I know this horrified Trek on the Tube, but imagine if Worf had accepted the Dax symbiont to preserve Jadzia. That would have been an interesting take in DS9 for back then.
Yeah. I'm kind of glad it didn't go that way, but for whatever reason, Guardian Z looks like Hannibal Lecter here when he's supposed to be like this sweet old guy.
I just wanted to quick mention that I actually found maybe almost more affecting than her meeting the different hosts when the sort of the sequence where she's presented before that sort of council, and they do the speak your name sort of thing, and she says her lineage. I guess I have a soft spot for that kind of thing. It's one of my favorite scenes in Enemy Mine, the old 80s movie, when Louis Gossett Jr.'s alien character kind of like gets his human counterpart to sort of give his lineage as best he can and explain how important it is to his people. And it's funny because I'm not like a big genealogy person or something like that, but I guess I like the idea of it for people for whom it is.
I liked it too. I really dug it when I think that to the Trill society, it's just like they have this, like, it's ingrained in them to revere those who can host, right? And so if they haven't seen a host in a long time, to hear them like be so confident and recall their selves, I think that must be a very profound experience, and I certainly felt it for them in the scene, and I loved it. I thought it was great. It kind of had that majesty and mystery vibe to it of like royalty and like being kind of anointed or something like that. And maybe that's too far, but I dug it. I love all that stuff.
And we also get like not only the satisfaction of like the asshole Voss like apologizes, but then the leader says, when the Federation returns, we're going to be ready to discuss another type of joining. So it sounds like the Trill are ready to sign back up for the Federation.
I have such a dirty mind. When she said that, the first thing I thought was, "Oh, they're gonna fuck." I was like,
Burnham,
yeah. And I was like, "What? What are they? Why would? Oh, they mean join the Federation? Oh God!"
Well, Burnham told Pav it would be my honor.
Yeah. It definitely, just for a second, my pervy brain just went off in a completely wrong way.
Okay, well, let's get off of that subject. We're going to completely change topics. We're going to talk about just real quickly, because it's actually not that much, but the Saru on the ship stuff with the crew morale story. Dr. Culpepper basically finished his out of physical exams, whatever he was doing. But he said, yeah, everyone's healthy except their stress hormones are like sky high. We got to do something like get these people to mellow out. So Saru, I like that he has his ready room all decorated, by the way. Like he kind of like switched the office desk and like the conference table locations. But I like that he Captain Saru has a ready room. He's like a real captain now.
It also looks like it's kind of the conference room as well.
Yeah, it serves both purposes in season 2.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's this hybrid room, I guess. But yeah, so Saru turns to the computer for advice, kind of like he did in season 1 when he's in command for the first time. But he's asking it, what can I do to help these people? And it's telling them things like, I don't know, like they need to eat less dairy or do interstellar shopping or yoga. But he's like, I need something that will heal them, not like a list of activities. And then the computer comes back to life and turns into Zora from Calypso. So what do y'all think of that? I thought that was a nice surprise.
I was so pumped. I was like, sphere data!
I gasped. I actually gasped. I was like, like it was really exciting. And I loved that what seemed to bring Zora to life, if you will, or reveal itself, is that Saru just can't. The computer is just not helpful, and Saru says, "I need something." Like he kind of demands, like, "I need something to heal my crew," and that's when like that comes out. And Dom Paris from Trek Central, I'll butcher it, but there's a German word called Klabautermann or something like that for an entity that arises when a crew loves their ship.
Yeah, and if sailors take care of their ship, if you're a good crew and you're good sailers, you kind of like the spirit of your ship will protect you when you're out at sea.
That's a neat idea.
Is like a Klabautermann type of idea, which I really enjoy.
I did not know that was a nautical tradition. That is also something I do in my games. Is your ship suddenly becomes sapient and in a not controlled, not planned way, not in a bad Terminator Skynet way, but it definitely has its own mind of its own, and it will help you and it will offer advice, but it might also cause problems, but not intentionally trying to cause problems because it's kind of new on the block. It doesn't quite understand how the ugly bags of mostly water work, and that is something I've done with just about every ship in my games.
That's awesome.
I
feel sorry, I was just gonna say, I feel like you may not know it, but your games are probably being somehow broadcast to the Discovery writers room or something.
Well, this is the 32nd century. By then my games are famous, but
I thought that Saru was almost a little too acquiescent about like suddenly finding out that the computers was becoming sentient. Now we the viewers have had we know about Zora from the Short Trek episode and stuff like that. But last he knew, sentient computer control was going to end all life in the universe a few weeks ago.
Well, the ship had already shown some signs of
I guess that's true. So anyway, I'm actually somewhat neither here nor there on it so far. I do think having a computer that is going to be like. There have been times in like I'm thinking specifically of TOS. There have been times when the computer became sort of sentient and weird, right?
Well, the computer really seems smarter in TOS than any other Star Trek show. Like it would.
But I think it'll be a nice thing to make it feel. One more thing to make it feel 32nd century is going to be have a computer that's got some sort of personality.
And just more of the Discovery weirdness. This is the weirdest show.
That's probably going to become increasingly quirky.
But yeah, Saru's is like, okay, so I need to like have a big dinner and show them Buster Keaton or Charlie Chaplin movies. Okay, I can do that. So if we get Saru's Thanksgiving dinner where he brings the bridge crew. I told him the bridge crew, although I thought it was weird. There's no chief engineer, and I'm guessing Culpepper is the chief medical officer because he's here and Dr. Pollard isn't.
Didn't he just say the people he works most closely with?
Yeah, he does say that. Tilly's an ensign, so she doesn't need to be with these senior officers.
Yeah.
He's grooming her for command. He's like her mentor.
Yeah, but we have who else do we have here?
A huge amount of the meat of this sequence that wouldn't work if Tilly wasn't there.
It's Giorgio is there, Linus, Reese, Bryce, Non, Culber, Tilly, and Nilsson, and Owosikan, and Detmer.
Yeah, but the role is clearly.
Don't you love that you know their names now?
An awkward family.
I've known their names since season 1.
See, I'm still coming to terms. I still don't know about half of those names.
Sorry, Dave. What were you saying?
Oh no. Well, father is very good at that. But I was going to say that the role of everybody here, how carefully thought through they were by the writers, I don't know. But the role was clearly to show a breakdown, a family dinner that goes off the rails after a little bit of some good stuff at first.
It actually is working.
Is the prayer of I a good thing? Because they're all like, we're all depressed because we decided to come into the future. So let's have a toast to that moment that we said that we said yes to coming into the future.
But it works. It actually, that you can see the energy levels going up as they work their way around. And even Giorgio is like, okay, I'm here, which for her is she could really smack Saru down on all this mushy stuff if she wanted. She's clearly going along. For her, that's an open endorsement of the plan.
It was weird for me that he called for a sort of prayer-like intro, but I liked what they chose for it, and it was of course what he wanted them to think about was that moment of solidarity when they chose of their own volition to stand together as a family. So I fully get it. It's a little schmaltzy, but I liked it.
Like when I used to do a lot of fundraising for nonprofit organizations, and one of the things that they teach you in that is like, you ask people, can you give us $100? And they're going to say like, no. And then you say like, well, do you still support this cause? Blah, 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 blah. And like, when you remind them of like, why they like whatever it is they like, remember when you chose to like stand with Michael and come into the future with her and all this stuff? It's like, whenever you remind that, that's refocusing. That's what they call that. It's like you refocus someone, and then you ask them for like a lesser amount of money and they're more likely to give it. So it's kind of like I guess Saru is using that tactic to cheer people up.
Father, can I have $1 billion?
No, I don't have it.
The Detmer scene was jarring for me. I actually found it really hard to kind of like hear her go into madness for a second there. It was really weird.
Yeah, I wasn't sure. I actually, even when all was said and done, I was like, oh, okay, is she supposed to be just experiencing the toughest PTSD of the crew, maybe in some ways, or is there still like some busted mechanical thing?
No, I think it's just PTSD.
I think so too, but like what she said was particularly weird.
Yeah, because I think the writing was a little forced. It was too heavy-handed and not organic. I liked all the stuff leading up to it. Like I thought, like Linus eating that Droog beetle pie, and then Giorgio is like into Linus. Like those characters are. As Kit Walski likes to say, they're hanging and banging.
Something going on.
But I liked
water.
I like the drama between Tilly and Stamets when Culber picks up on it. There's the tension from their work argument, and Culber's like, "What is going on between you two?" I liked the Saru being like, "This is like the harvest on Kaminar," and then Giorgio making fun of him with the her haiku.
Has somebody done a Last Supper version with painting yet, or mock-up with him at the center and everybody else around him kind of arguing?
But the haiku is still a teasing, fun bit of making fun of somebody. It is not the brutal, ruthless slams that Giorgio is capable of throwing out there.
I would have been okay if it was, though. Kind of like, I like when they remember that this character is an asshole. Like, she likes to eat people. Like, I think season 3 has done like a better job of like letting her like be her more evil self. I also like when we get to like the high tension moments here. She's kind of like smiling. She's like, whenever the camera cuts to her, she kind of like has like this grin on her face. Because I find myself, I do that. I like in socially awkward situations when like people are like getting in a fight or something. Like if like a couple is like getting in like an argument in like front of other people and stuff. Or like if they're like two friends are like about to get in a fight and they're yelling at each other, I always start smiling as I'm watching that. And like it's a behavior that like now that I've caught on that I do it, I try to hide it. But I don't know, for whatever reason, like there in the moment, like I kind of watch, I kind of like watching, I like spectating that type of stuff. Some whatever weird reason, I like seeing those awkward confrontations.
In her case, we know that she's as much as said that she's kind of like is bored easily. She likes drama, and so it's certainly fit that she would be kind of enjoying. She'd be like, oh, finally this party is going somewhere.
Yeah, this is what I showed up for.
But I thought like the Detmer, like I don't know, like she's like Detmer is like all like smiling and trying to be like an asshole, and it was just weird. It was weird. Like they kind of hang on it too long. It felt forced. It was the one part of this episode that worked the least well for me.
I felt it. I felt it was supposed to be deliberately, surreally, just strange. Like
right.
I don't think you were supposed to be able to wrap your head around what was going on here.
Sometimes when people have a breakdown of sorts, it happens in very unpredictable ways. But yeah, I think it could have been done better.
What is the actor's name?
Oh, I don't know.
It was.
Is it
Olivia? It's something Coots. It's I can't remember her first name.
Emily
Coots.
Yeah. So I actually, one thing that I appreciated about it was jarring, but it reminded me so much of The Shining, like how when he starts to have his.
Oh, like, Jesus Christ! Don't compare. Oh. Don't compare this to like Jack Nicholson, like one of the best American actors ever.
Sorry. Okay. Bad Starfleet boy. Bad Starfleet boy. Let's just take that back. I dared to do it.
No, I thought
I guess she's not going to be following the podcast anymore after that.
I thought the actress was doing a good job. It's like they gave her some Chris Claremont from old X-Men comics dialogue to work with. It was a little tough, but let's move on, Father. What else we got?
Yeah, well, her and Stamets are basically yelling about like I fly the ship, but I am the one who like really is the one saving the ship, and Tilly is like you're both being assholes, and Saru is like can't we all get along? That's his thing that we learned last week, and everyone eventually like storms out. I like that Owo kind of like had like Detmer's back because they're like buddies at the front of the bridge, I guess. But eventually it just ends up with like sad Saru. Giorgio made me laugh when she's like, well, at least the wine was good, and she takes the bottle of wine with her as she leaves.
Classic.
Yeah, that's what I would want to do in this situation. I would want to be the person who does that. So we have sad, depressed Saru, but then Tilly comes to cheer him up, and I think it's kind of weird, like this little ensign Tilly. They kind of forget that she's an ensign sometimes. They kind of like make her be, one of the most important people, and like give advice to the captain. I have a hard time seeing like Chekhov and Kirk, or Harry Kim and Janeway. Or Nog and Cisco having this same type of conversation, but whatever. She comes to thank him, like thank you for putting this on, and then Stamets comes to apologize to her, and
I got a little panicked at this point that everybody was gonna like randomly show up and like all apologize. I was worried about it.
I did wonder if that was going to happen. I wasn't panicked, but I did wonder, are they going to do that? That would be weird.
But I guess the kind of the shitty thing about this B plot is that they actually like don't. There's no like moment. There's no like action that any person takes. There's no climax to the story that like turns things around. Basically, all they just wait. They just wait a few minutes, and then everyone like apologizes and makes up to one another.
Well, I
guess I don't mind that bit of realism that the evolution is people the cool down period, I guess.
Yeah.
I'm okay with that conceptually. Again, I probably think it could have been done better, but
I liked it just fine. I was like, okay, you get out of the room, you stop, you think about everything you said and done, and you're like, maybe I'm the asshole. So
yeah.
I just thought that like some of the problems that people were experiencing, that there'd be more people who were just like missing family and loved ones from before. They mentioned that losing their connection. Culpepper mentioned it in his opening narration. And instead they kind of made it all the problems that were just sort of like their front and center grievances, that like seemed like day-to-day work problems.
Yeah, but when you have all that other stuff draining away your emotional energy, the little things in your day suddenly become big things because you don't have that emotional energy to deal with it.
I think that explains.
Well, go ahead.
That explains like Stamets's reluctance earlier to like give up his one thing that he has that's so important. That's kind of like a theme that maybe could have been developed more. But I like that Saru's like, look. Quite frankly, like we need an alternative to you in case you're incapacitated again. And he takes it so personally. And even here, it's an extension of that same thing where he's like, without me, we wouldn't be where, we wouldn't be so close to Earth and everything else. And it's like, I like that because you're right. When you have nothing else, when you've gone so far away from your home and you have all this underlying stress, you kind of hold on to those little things. Those things become really huge. And I like that.
It's also questioning his integrity. He spent years trying to build an electronic or optronic or duotronic, I suppose it would be, duotronic way of doing the spore jumps, and he failed. And Saru basically comes up and said, well, you weren't really trying. Can we actually do it once more with a little effort? And I can, with some personality like Stamets, I can totally see if you're stressed out about life in general, that's a snapping point there. Yeah. That is, what the hell?
But he comes around. He tells Tilly and Saru, he's like, let's pursue this. Let's put our brains together, see if we can make this dark matter thing work. And Detmer, I guess she has guilt from her awkward Thanksgiving dinner. She goes to Dr. Culpepper. She's like, yeah, I'm not okay. I need to talk to you. And
do you think we're going to get more with Detmer, or is that the end of Detmer's acting weird story?
I hope it's the end of it, unless they make it more interesting. Because right now, like I'm fine, like being like, okay, she went and got help. The end. If this is drawn out, I'd like it to be like a little bit more interesting in its presentation.
Yeah, I guess for me, it feels like it's weird enough that it has to be a little bit more than just I'm stressed out that I'm in the future. That there has to be something, some sci-fi thing going on that we haven't.
No, I don't want that. That'll make me a sad boy. I'll be like,
her brain is already partially cyborg, so anything that goes on in her head is partially science fiction already. But I could see how, with Discovery's kind of awkwardness with things, that this might be the last time we're going to deal with this issue as well. So I don't know.
What I'd love to see is what Culpepper was talking. I had never heard of this theory or concept before, the post-traumatic growth, and I think that's so. I'm like, where was that in my life? Because when you're dealing with PTSD, it is kind of you do have this
Is that a real thing? Does that actually exist?
I didn't have time
or is
to look it
something the script writers made up?
I don't know. I didn't have time to look it up. Yeah, I didn't have time to look it up, but I was curious about it too. But it just makes sense anyways, because what he says about it earlier is that like those kinds of traumatic situations force you to grow in a sense, because they force you to do something different.
Whatever does not kill you makes you stronger, but there's also whatever does not kill you leaves you with a lot of unhealthy coping mechanisms.
It's true.
So
it's true.
I guess I'm very curious to know if that terminology actually is out.
But
there.
if you're guided,
it is possible to conquer those things.
It is very Star Trek that yes, you can come out of these tragedies better than you were before. That is certainly a very Star Trek idea. Whether it's supported by the American Psychological Association, I don't know, but it is very. You're right. It's very, very Trek. I also think they're going to figure out this dark matter, and that's going to become the new warp drive to help put the Federation back together again. I'm pretty sure that's where we're going with it.
That'll use the spore drive. So yeah, that's last week we talked about like
it seems like this season is essentially a quest format, the quest to find Starfleet, and obviously there's both a literal finding of it, and then there's going to be a more spiritual way to like find it and find a way to embody its ideals. But I do think that's going to be like a key thing, I'm sure.
Well, let's talk about the ending of the episode. Saru surprises everyone with a movie in the shuttle bay. This kind of made me feel how like drive-in movies have kind of like I've gone to see a couple of drive-in movies recently
since the pandemic.
So it's kind of like an old like this old movie art form being used to like cope with current circumstances. It was this actually like when I watched it the first time, I started like laughing out loud when I saw like all these characters like having fun in the shuttle bay, and like I started crying a little bit. Like I was just surprised when there's like a tear on my cheek. I was like, oh, like I'm just like so happy to see these people so happy. And Linus bringing popcorn to his date Giorgio. She's like they're always hanging out. Like there's no way.
Yeah, that's a good point. She definitely has some. I assume she has some evil scheme, but she may just be.
You don't know how well hung Saurians are.
Yeah, she likes that Saurian D.
Maybe they're all. I'm gonna pretend they're all watching hentai.
This is another trope from my games is bringing 20th and 21st century pop culture and dropping it in wherever I can think I can wedge it into the story with a reasonable excuse as to why they're watching an old movie, listening to an old song, and rather than doing all the great classics like Star Trek usually does, I'm usually much more for cheesy pop stuff that is like, really? That's still a thing in the 24th century? I just get an enormous enjoyment out of that. And I love the idea that they pick some sort of physical comedy thing that will appeal to all cultures because and get by the language barrier and the cultural barrier with this kind of more physical comedy. I thought that was really clever. And well thought out. They could have been watching Casablanca, but let's face it, 80% of them wouldn't have known what the hell was going on with Casablanca.
I think if you showed that to like a modern audience now, like a lot of young people would have no idea what was going on.
I didn't get it the first time I watched it. It took me a while.
Can you pull up Stress-Free K's comment about Linus there at the very end? I think,
sure.
I think that's a good.
Stress-Free K in the chat says Linus is reptilian. The closest cold-bloodedness we'll ever find. Yeah, it's like
that's a fit for Giorgio.
Connection. But we end with this conversation between Culpepper and Saru, where Culpepper says, like, "Yeah, we just needed like to admit we're not okay." And Saru is like, "Yeah, we're not, are we?" And he's like, "No, of course not. Like, how could we be? Like the shit we're going through." And I think this is like a message of like a lot of like COVID-19. 2020 audience will I think it will resonate with many people. It's both that's kind of the whole theme of this episode. It's acknowledging the trauma of the circumstances, but maintains a sense of hopefulness. Which seemed very very appropriate.
It was
a very familiar triad is starting to form with the first officer and the medical officer and the captain.
Nice. It's an incredibly powerful message, and this is why there's not a big climax, Fathery, because they didn't fix the problem. They just came to the point where they realized I'm not okay.
They just acknowledged there is a problem.
I'm not okay, and that's okay. That's where they are. There's not a big climax would have undermined the message.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
And I'm glad that there was that they are continuing to do things that, like, whether intentional or not, I think it's unintentional, reflect our sort of COVID anxiety without being too literal about them. There's no space virus or anything like that.
Yeah. And the last scene we get, Adira is like, okay, well, cool. I have the coordinates to Federation HQ. So here you go, Burnham. We can go visit Federation HQ next week. I guess that'll be the story for the next episode for season 3, episode 5. I'm going to hang out in here and play the cello.
Are they literally like 5 minutes away from any given place right now?
Pretty much.
Yeah, that's kind of what they have the coordinates. They can go there.
I mean, unless Stamets is sleeping, and then they, maybe want to think about, do we want to wake him up?
But yeah, the last thing we see before the end credits is Gray appears, and
Gray Ghost.
Gray Ghost, like Batman the Animated Series. But yeah, I thought this was like a really cool idea of how to continue this romance, and it's kind of probably in like an unhealthy way to have like your lover like in your mind. But it made me think of Dave likes to bring up X-Men a lot on Tex-Trek, so it reminded me of like the old Scott Summers, Jean Grey. Oh, another Grey character. Like their romance and like the Chris Claremont days, how they had like this telepathic bond, which again, is like unhealthy. But I don't know. There's something kind of romantic about it.
I think that they didn't make out that they were invasive with it.
Yeah. I mean, we say, oh, look, this is unhealthy, but I mean, infinite diversity, infinite combinations, man. If it works for them, it works. That's the question.
For sure. And I think I would like if I had lost someone, if I had someone who died, I would long for this. I would want to have like the option of like them to like I want them to like exist in my mind, and I have all their memories and they have all my memories, but we can still spend time together. And it can only just be me and them when we're together. But yeah, I think that's a really unique idea. So I'm looking forward to seeing this play out. This might be like a slight spoiler for things in the rest of the season, but just I think it kind of needs to be addressed just because people are concerned about the bury the gay trope. But they've already confirmed that both these actors are returning for season 4. They're both in Toronto right now. This week production started on season 4. Well, it's late in the evening, so I'm sure they wrapped for the day today. But a few hours ago, cameras were rolling, actors were acting, directors were directing, and these two actors are part of the season.
So they're not going to kill Gray again.
Yeah, this is an ongoing thing that we're gonna continue to have, and the ship, I guess. Yeah, the final shot of the ship setting course for Federation HQ that we'll find out about next week.
I have some concerns about Gray and Adira, and I hope they handle it in ways that subvert my expectations. But I'm just worried about like the idea of like, what if Adira meets someone who is a romantic interest? Then does the Gray host memory become possessive and jealous? There's like all these things that I'm like kind of like, I don't know if I want that. Like it's kind.
I think it could be fun. Let's do it.
Yeah, it could be.
I mean,
that's good drama. I want to see that stuff. That's a happy couple is a dull couple, isn't it the same? I think they could just like keep the two of them like happy with like this romance, but it's also like you mentioned, like there's dramatic possibilities. So let's see that play out.
I don't want to. They shouldn't be miserable all the time, but there should definitely be challenges that they have to come up with solutions to.
Yeah, I assume it will be a way that that Adira interrogates herself about her feelings on something. Is we will get this sounding board, so that'll serve a neat dramatic purpose. And then also, Trill are always able to kind of call upon past memories, and here it's going to just maybe take a bit more of the form of a conversation rather than I remember such and such a time. And I think that might be an interesting way to do it. I wonder if they'll, how much they'll get into the nuts and bolts of it, like, can Adira, if she wants, turn it off? I would kind of hope so. But I don't know.
I don't think so. I think it's like on all the time. But
I need my privacy.
Well, the thing is like when you pass on the symbiont, the new host has all the memories of the previous host. So everything that person knew, everything that Gray knew his entire life, Adira now knows all that stuff.
There's another weird thing.
I hope Riker changed his password after that Next Generation episode.
Another weird thing I noticed is like how May wanted to keep it from Burnham, that was trying to prevent Tilly from revealing that Tilly was seeing May. In this case, Gray's like, "Why didn't you tell her you see me?" Which was interesting. I thought that was cool.
Yeah, I mean, I think they're eventually going to like, who are you talking to? Like that's going to happen eventually. But let me knock out these Gorn eggs real fast. These are all of the Easter eggs, in jokes, and continuity connections that I found in the episode. If I miss any, be sure to let me know. But I'm just going to run through these real quickly. Mm-hmm. In sickbay, Adira says, I can speak 7 languages and cook a mean Bajoran Hasperat. A Hasperat's a Bajoran food that we see in Deep Space Nine on the Next Generation. It's kind of like a tortilla wrap type thing.
Yeah.
On the Trill homeworld, we get to pay a visit to it again. We first saw it in the Deep Space Nine episode Equilibrium. The character Voss is referred to as a commissioner. So I think we can assume he's commissioner of the Symbiosis Commission, which was established in that same Deep Space Nine episode, Equilibrium. The computer coming to life, that was a callback to Zora from Calypso. And I think eventually we'll see this the ship become self-aware. The caves of McElroy were also visited in Deep Space Nine Equilibrium. And we see the symbiotes swimming around with the electrical pulses, similar to how we saw them in that episode. In Saru's new ready room decor, he has the red flowers on his conference table. Those are the flowers of Kaminar that were first seen in the short trek, The Brightest Star. When Adira goes into the Trill pool, she's given like this white robe, this white gown. Kind of looks like she's about to get baptized or something at church. But it's the same thing that Jadzia wore in Equilibrium. The orb that I mentioned, the Menta orb that Guardian Z used, that was to track the isoprobamine, if I said that right, the isoprobamine levels of Adira. That is a Trill neurotransmitter that conducts the symbiont and host communication. So, these writers, it's hard to believe that they fucked up with the Synthahol thing last week, because they do a really good job with all the technobabble stuff and looking up all the relevant stuff. But the isoboramine levels are important, because if they drop below 40%, then it could be bad news for the symbiont or the host. The people that come in, the other Trill that come into the cave, they have like these sticks, these neural stabilizers that Guardian Z asked them to use, help the process what's going on in the pool. A neural stabilizer, or sometimes called a delta wave inducer, was used on Dax when the symbionts was kind of being stolen from her in the season 2 episode Invasive Procedure. One of the previous hosts of the symbionts was seen wearing a 2399 uniform. He's actually has a captain's rank, a captain's uniform, that we have seen that variant of Star Trek uniform on Star Trek Picard season 1.
That's probably the same uniform there on those 2 slides.
Yeah. Well, that guy must be like as tall as Jonathan Frakes then.
That's what you wear when you want to kick some Tal Shiar ass.
And then the movie night on the shuttle bay, where they're watching Buster Keaton movies. Movie nights were a popular thing on the Enterprise NX-01. And Giorgio eating popcorn with Linus. That is the same popcorn container that we saw Kraft using in Calypso.
Oh.
The far future of popcorn bags
Nice.
looks exactly like modern popcorn bags.
Not exactly. It's like this had like a specific design on it.
It's a nanotech bag.
Nice.
And having a previous host appear to a current Trill host, that was something that we saw in Deep Space Nine. Also, with the character Duran appeared in Equilibrium to Jadzia, and then he appeared again in Field of Fire to Ezri. And that was all the Gorn eggs. Like I said, if I missed any, be sure to let me know.
Well done.
Nice.
But I think that's going to do it for this week. We will be back next Friday to discuss Season 3, Episode 5, Die Trying. And I guess we'll see what this future Starfleet is all about.
I had one more thing to say. The number one way of all time that you're in a Brian Swift role-playing game is if one or more characters has a ghost character following them around that only they can see and hear.
Wow. It's a crazy episode.
This was wow. I just was like, It's all the
meta,
tropes
super meta
to the
for you,
point where
yeah.
these are some of these embarrassing tropes that I'm trying not to do anymore because I feel I played them out too much.
You were just validated.
Now they're back. He was trying to phase them out, but they're back.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Rock
so be sure to comment and let us know how you felt about the episode. And join us again next week when we discuss episode 5. And also meet us back on the Starfleet. For people watching us live, you can come meet us on the Starfleet Boy channel in about 30 minutes.
30
We'll be hanging out on Starfleet Boy After Dark. I think we're going to be talking about this week's episode of Mandalorian.
It's Starfleet Boy After Dark, Chapter 10.
Chapter 10. Okay, so I'll see you there, whoever's going to be joining us. And until next time, as always, live long and prosper, y'all.
Right on.
Listen to the Tex-Trek podcast through Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, or at tex-trek.com. Like us on Facebook at facebook.com/tex-trek. And follow Fathery on Twitter at TXTrek. Please support us by liking our videos and subscribing to our channel on YouTube. Thank you and take care.